one day I was out with the helper that I was under, and he's like, "You want to change a tire?" I'm like, "I mean, sure. I've been watching you do it for a couple weeks, and I don't think it's hard. I'll give it a shot." And I changed the tire, and then after that, I was like on my 10th tire. And by that time, once you get the tire change thing done, I fell in love with just like everything that I was looking for with roadside. So I was able to be the person that came. 5 years later, here I am.
Welcome to Beating the Odds, the podcast about successful minority businesses that will inspire, educate, and inform you. Your host is Mike Dewey, entrepreneur and founder of Hidden Star, a 501c3 nonprofit that has helped hundreds of minority entrepreneurs start and grow their businesses. Discover and celebrate minority business success with Beating the Odds.
Hi, this is Mike Dewey, and on the show today is Wydiah Marshall, and Wydiah has a company near Philadelphia called DMX Priority Roadside. Wydiah, how are you today?
I am pretty good, Mike. How are you?
I am great. So you're right outside of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, right?
Yes, just outside of Philly. More so like by the airport, Philadelphia Airport. That's for Delaware, primarily Delaware County. We do service Philadelphia, Jersey, and Delaware County as well. But our home office is in Delaware County.
All right, perfect. And now tell us a little bit about your childhood. Did you grow up in Philadelphia? Did you move around a lot? Where did you go to school? Those sorts of things.
Yeah, so I am born and raised in Philadelphia. I am a true Philadelphian. I've actually never lived anywhere else long term. So I've traveled long term, but not actually lived anywhere else. Philly's home, and then home again. So, Delaware County being just outside, it just kind of gets you away from the city life, so to speak, without taking it away completely. So Delaware County is just a little bit more settled. It doesn't plug you right into that Philly drive life every day. But Philly's right next door.
Got it. Now, when you were a kid, did you dream about having your own business? Were those sorts of ambitions? What did you want to be when you were a kid?
Absolutely. So I'll say early on, what I did know is that I didn't want to work for anyone. I've always wanted to learn new things. I've always wanted to try, something new, figure out where I fit, be the best at it. But to work for someone, I never could really, I guess, adjust. Since a kid, it will always be in my brain. I had the best ideas. I knew how to do it the best way. If I didn't do it, it wouldn't be right. I've always had that mindset. And I've learned as I got older, that's more so an entrepreneur mindset is what it is. So as a kid, I went through the frustration of why nobody listens to me. And then you kind of get older and turn into a preteen, and no one still listens to you, and you become an adult and say, "Oh, it's because I'm not the boss," and everything starts to make sense. So I've always had the I want my own, I want to be in control, I want to be in charge mindset. Long before I even knew what entrepreneurship was. So it's definitely been. I think I'm a born and raised boss, if that makes any sense.
Sure. Now, is anybody in your family or immediate, friends or any entrepreneurs in those?
So there is one other entrepreneur in my family. That's my older sister. Funny thing is, I actually helped her start her business, before we got into mine. So I graduated with my associate's degree, in business management, and then I went on to get my bachelor's in accounting. Once I got my associate's, I started to help her, to get into just like the tax end and paperwork end of things, which I was pretty fluent in at the time. And we started her home healthcare agency back in 2016, which is very successful now. And then there's me, that comes after that. So it's just the two of us.
Got it. Now, so where'd you get your accounting degree?
I went to community college for my associate, and then I finished up at Freya University.
Perfect. What was your first job?
Very, very first job in life or as an adult? Because they are different.
Right, let's do both.
So in life, very, very first job was with a cab company. At the time, it was like 333 cab, if I'm not mistaken. But I started out as their dispatcher. Very first time was able to be like in a semi-office setting with dealing with the phone and the computer and kind of like that hustle and bustle of work. I was 16 years old and I started there. That was my first taste of being behind a desk and I fell in love with it. Fell in love with it absolutely. I stayed there until for 3 years. When I was 19, I got my first corporate job at Pico Energy, which is the electric company out here. I know they're everywhere.
Yep.
Excellent. It's the electric company out here. I went right into their call center, making like pretty decent money at 19, and I was sold. From there, I said, from this point, I'm going to be behind a desk. If it's not my own, then I need to be CEO or something. So yeah, Pico was my stepping stone for jumping into corporate America and saying I wanted to stay. I fell in love with being in the call center. I fell in love with being the fixer. I had all the answers. Everyone that was calling in needed something from me. So I fell in love with, I fell in love with that same, I'm the boss. I have the answers. I'm the fixer. I'm the go-to. That's always been, and still to this day, that's kind of one of the main reasons why, I run a successful business is because I genuinely enjoy being the person behind getting things done successfully.
Great. But what was your first job out of college?
So this is where it gets weird. So with my 4-year degree, not even weird, interesting. Took me about 8 years to finish. So college and I are not the best of friends, even though we got it done. But getting my bachelor's definitely was difficult. I did a lot of, like job bouncing around, couldn't really find my niche and where I wanted to be. Realistically, I think I've held at least 15 different corporate positions outside of Pico. We're talking from Xfinity to insurance companies to Blue Cross Blue Shield to the cable company. I've been in many different positions, but none put me where I wanted to be, which was in charge.
Right.
So I found a kind of a loophole. So opposed to, and this went on for maybe about a solid 5 years. I would go to, instead of going to these companies directly, I would go to temp agencies so that I wouldn't be locked into longevity. Because what I did know was that wherever I wind up, I did not want to stay. It didn't matter. I wanted my own business. So opposed to building bad relationships with these companies by coming on as a new hire, getting a job, and then deciding to leave, I would go through the employment agencies instead. They would grant you these temporary positions that weren't long term, allow you to get your foot in the door, learn new things, and then go. So I would go through. I was with a staffing agency called People Share for about 10 years, and under them, I've probably held about 15 to 20 different corporate positions. But that was my wiggle room there. It allowed me to get in and get out and learn new things without being the she can't keep a job person.
Yeah, because you got to tell people you work for People Share for 10 years.
Yeah. So it came out to be a win-win. I've learned different cultures, different techniques, different experiences, different companies. I've worked with this company called Ajero, who strictly overseas. I worked for them under People Share for about 5 years. Now they are one of my biggest contracts with my business. So everything kind of just tied into place strategically.
Right. But you picked up a lot of great experience bouncing around between those corporate jobs. That's a huge advantage.
Yeah, I think I would definitely, I would never recommend anyone to go, just kind of bouncing around jobs. Definitely find longevity, but if you're kind of in the realm where I was, with just wanting to learn new things and meet new people and kind of sharpen up my skill set, a temp agency is definitely a good route. Definitely a good route.
So how did you come up with the idea for DMX Priority Roadside?
So I started out as in the accounts payable department for Allstate, the insurance company. This is where my roadside journey started. So I was in accounts payable, just doing payrolls and invoicing, and just with slowly meeting the drivers that were on the road. Their pay was different. Not so much as what they made, but they were contractors. So no taxes were coming out. This is my first time ever seeing this from a corporate company. I had never seen independent contractors and 1099 employees come through payroll. So this was the first for me. So I said, okay, these guys, they're not getting any taxes taken out. Who are these guys and what do they do? That's literally how it started. I went to my floor manager at the time and I'm like, the contractors, what do they do? And she's like, well, they do roadside assistance. They go out on the road and they change tires and, jump starts and deliver gas and lock out the stranded motorists. And I'm like, okay, so why don't they get any taxes taken out? And she said, well, they're contractors there, so they work for themselves. And she kind of explained the independent contractor part to me. And I'm like, okay. So there was a big difference between now it was my pay and what I did, and then these independent contractors, what they were doing that I was interested in. So I wanted to find a middle. So what I started to do was pick up hours to be an independent contractor as a driver, and I went through their training program on the weekend. So I would do accounting Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, and then Friday evening, Saturday, and Sunday morning, I would train roadside assistants. That just started out to be my extra income. It totally eliminated me doing, at the time, I believe I was doing Uber, and then eliminated that income at that point, and so then it started to be a second job. So I would work for Allstate as an accountant during the day, and then I would be roadside assistant at night, and I wouldn't change any tires because I'm a girl, and us girls, we didn't do that then. So I would do everything but the tire change, and then one day I was out with the helper that I was under, and he's like, "You want to change a tire?" I'm like, I mean, sure. I've been watching you do it for a couple of weeks, and I don't think it's hard. I'll give it a shot. And I changed the tire, and after that, I was like on my 10th tire. And by that time, once you get the tire change things done, I fell in love with just like everything that I was looking for with roadside. So I was able to be the person that came. The customers stranded, they're totally relying on me to get it done, to get it fixed, to keep them safe. To communicate what's going on between them and the insurance company and all of those things. So I fell in love with being able to empathize and reassure those customers that I would be there. And that slowly transitioned into me being a full-time roadside for Allstate. Accounting became no more after about three months. I was strictly a contractor for them. And then Allstate honestly held both hands through entrepreneurship for me. They said, okay, you're a contractor. You want to start your own business because you are out here killing it. The customers love you. We can show you how. And me and Allstate went from there. And 5 years later, here I am.
Wow. And you still have a good relationship with Allstate?
Yes, I still. So Allstate was my very first business contract. Once we got up and running and qualified to start to take insurance contracts, Allstate was my very first one.
Wow. Well, that's amazing. Wait, that's awesome.
I am forever indebted. Forever
now,
indebted with them.
Where did you get the money to start your company? How much did it cost? Where all the stuff about how did you get the financing to get going?
Financing. I still don't have financing. So I started honestly with just the simple getting my LLC. I remember when I started, I went through LegalZoom. It was about $800, which was a little pricey at the time. But what LegalZoom allowed me to do was split the balance into 3 payments. So altogether to get LegalZoom to take care of everything, for me, which was the LLC, the registering of the entity, the EIN number, getting your DUNS number, your business bank account, register agents, all of those things, LegalZoom will do. Cost about $800. They let me split that payment down into 3. That was the first thing I was able to do. I didn't have $800 to start my business. I had about 2. So I had a standing business, and then I learned that what I needed to do to detach business from my personal guarantee, because my personal credit was horrible. So I needed to figure out how to get people to look at just my business and not my personal. And I did research on getting the DUNS number. That's where that came in at. That was the very second thing I did, and I worked at that. Starting trade lines that didn't cost much, just small monthly payments like $50, $40. I did a ton of research on those. Same with establishing business bank account, and at one point I was only putting about $20 into my business account a week because we weren't accumulating a lot of revenue. But with that, like the financing end of it, it literally came from personal. So I would do Uber and Lyft to fund my business. I would do pop-up shops with like cooking and selling food to fund my business. I would work like odd jobs to put into business. So I haven't reached the milestone of getting quote unquote business funding. It's all been personally and family and friends funded opposed to just the revenue that we make.
So I interviewed a guy one time who had a $500 million company,
Mm-hmm.
and he said he was talking about he had to personally guarantee all these loans when they started the company. And I said, well, how big was the company when you got to quit personally guaranteeing the loans?
Mm-hmm.
And he said last month they were at $450 million before he was able to quit personally guaranteeing the loans. So you bootstrapped it and you paid for it as you went. How did you get the word out? Did you talk? Obviously Allstate was there as a provider of revenue generating trips. How did you get the word out?
So strategically, of course, I'm in a male dominated industry. It's guys. The guys take over roadside. They do the towing, the roadside assistance. So there was a teeny tiny small window, not for just a female, but for the female. Roadside assistance didn't have one. So that's where I made my mark. It wasn't really about the money. It was, I'm here and I'm good. So what I would do was, I don't tow. We're roadside only. So I started to offer third party towing, meaning that I allow customers to call me and I'll find you a tow. We don't tow. But it's not going to cost me anything, or I'm not going to lose anything by getting on the phone and finding you a tow truck driver. And for that,
Right.
because we network, roadside assistants and the tow truck drivers, we were kind of like more so brother and sister. We work hand in hand. So marketing wise, it was, I can make it easy on the customer to find them a tow truck driver, and I can impress my tow truck drivers by sending them business. That's where I made my mark as a female roadside assistant. So I wasn't just, here comes this girl in a male dominated industry and she doesn't know what she's doing. It was, here comes this woman in a male dominated industry and we need someone like her. I made sure that the market seen it that way, opposed to, here's this girl doesn't know what she's doing again. So I created just the atmosphere to carry all of the things that roadside assistance is missing. One, the guys, they're not too empathetic. They get in and then they get out. They get the job done and they go. Not really so much to nurture the customer or the situation. It's just not the dynamic of the industry. So I started to bring that. I'm a mother of 5. So I'm used to it. Very understanding and empathetic. So I would say, okay, this is what the guys need. And I got it. I got the customer service. I have the dispatch for you. I have just that nurturing aspect to bring to the market that tells everybody else, let her handle it. They like it that way. And that's how I've grown.
Well, I've never thought about it, but if somebody needs roadside assistance, they're probably in a pretty tough spot, and having a female business that's empathetic is probably pretty good differentiator from some gruff guy who just pulls up in a tow truck, hooks you up, and pulls off.
Yep. And I tell the customers all the time, because you have to balance it just strategically between, 1, the customer stranded, 2, they're frustrated, 3, they don't care about anything other than them getting what they need so they can go. So you
Right.
try to balance all of those things and also get the customer to understand, we want you to get the best service possible. We want you to get the safest service possible, and we want to be able to guarantee that you'll be okay. So I find a window between how the customers feel and what needs to be done. And I just kind of balance it all out. It's going to take a little bit of time for someone to get there. Do you need me to get you anything along the way? Kind of give them things like that. And that it puts them in a space where I have a lot of customers that choose to not call their insurance. They'll call me directly and say, I'll wait for you. I'll tell customers, it's okay, go home. I'd rather you wait for me than me wait for you. So you can go home. When I get to your vehicle, I'll stay and wait for you to return, if that's more convenient. Sometimes customers are already waiting on a provider who doesn't show. I will ask my customers, do you need me to grab you a water on the way? If you don't mind me stopping for an additional 2 minutes, I'll definitely grab you something to drink if that's okay with you. I'll tell my customers all the time, if you need to call a tow, go ahead and call your tow. I'll wait for your tow. You can leave with your vehicle. Sometimes customers are stranded. If you need me to get you a lift, DMX Priority Roadside will get you a ride to where you need to go, and we'll take care of where your vehicle has to be. So I give them the extra that roadside assistance doesn't provide that I do every day. I'm a mother of 5. So, I just kind of twist it all up in one.
Okay, so you started DMX, you started your company in 2019, right?
Yes, in 2019.
How long did it take before you were profitable?
So, let's see, because I did it strategically in about 3 different steps. So when I first started, my business was Allstate. We did just a contractor contract. So even though I had my business, my contract with Allstate was just, Wydiah Marshall. I wasn't married at the time, so I was Wydiah Hudson. But Wydiah Hudson, and Allstate had the contract, not with DMX Priority Roadside. I did that with 3 different companies when I started. That's how I seen profit. So my business wasn't quote unquote making money directly, but I, as an independent contractor, could. Nobody wanted to contract with the new business. So I got my foot in the door that way, just as a contractor. And with those 3 active contracts, I let them run for about 6 months. Literally March 2020, at the height of the pandemic, when everything went bad for business. That was literally the height in the transition of my business. I was the only business willing to still work. I'm one of the only businesses that was willing to take the lower of the pay rate for the contract. And they needed us. They needed me. So the pandemic is really where we started to see profit. About a year. And first contract with Allstate, they transitioned. They gave me a new contract with my business directly, and that was solely because they couldn't fulfill. And then with Ajero, they came through with my second business contract, and they followed more so behind Allstate. It was like, okay, you have an Allstate contract, cool, we'll take you. And now we have 7. Now we have 7 active contracts.
Okay, great. So you start that, you in 2019, pandemic hits, you adapt, sounds like brilliantly. You come out of that, you're profitable now. How many employees do you have now?
We have 13 drivers.
How much of your time these days is spent driving?
I drive every day. So my days are normally split between dispatch and driving. I run overnight for the most part, but I get at least 8 hours of driving in a day. It doesn't happen often that I'm not needed, because even when I'm not on the road as a driver, I'm on the road as a supervisor. And there's always something to supervise. I'd like to pop up on my drivers all the time.
Right. So you come out of college, you work for a staffing company, you get a bunch of great experience in a bunch of different jobs. You start a company based on your relationship with Allstate. Pandemic hit, you come through that. You now employ 13 drivers, right?
Yes.
And what a remarkable, great story. If you don't mind my asking, just a rough range of the total revenue of the company every year?
We're doing about 90,000. So I ran our revenue report just recently. We're about 90. So between 2021 and now, we did 207. Like now, as of the 27th of this month, we're at 207,000. So I average that at about 90 a year.
So you employ 13 people, but again, I mean, to put this in context, you started your own company, you now employ 13 people, you've got revenue, you've got loyal customers, and yeah, I mean, you're not a billionaire yet, but it's a nice company, it's growing, and it provides a nice lifestyle, and you're the boss, which is what you always wanted to be.
I've always wanted to be, and it's growing. I tell myself all the time that DMX Priority Roadside we are fortunate to be, time wise, we would be considered a small business. The market that we're in, a lot of businesses don't get off the ground. Getting your first contract is maybe one of the hardest things, and then maintaining it. Business, for one of the things we have to have to run roadside is commercial insurance. That's expensive. Looking at about $3,000 a month. So to maintain that, you need to get a contract, you need to maintain that. And of course, to get a contract, you want to get a contract that's going to at least bring that in, which isn't a guarantee. So most businesses kind of get caught in that whirlwind. So I try to not dwell on so much as the profit, but just that we're up and running and getting calls. Because
right.
it's not easy for a business to kind of get started. We don't run cash calls, which is something most businesses start out by doing. They say the motor clubs and insurance isn't worth it. You will see it everywhere. It's not true. But we started out the opposite. So we started out contract only. We are still contract only. We have not transitioned into cash calls. If a customer just so happens to call and they, prefer to just deal with us directly, of course we'll quote them, and get the service done. But we don't run a standard cash call method, not just yet. We're just getting our feet wet with it.
So, obviously you interact with a bunch of different people, both the drivers, the employees, customers, and people stranded. What's the funniest thing that's happened to you since you started that company?
Oh my gosh. You have to give me a timeline. So much stuff goes on the road. We're starting a vlog and podcast called On the Roadside that'll be coming in the fall. Strictly because of so much goes on. The funniest, I would have to say, so many. Somewhere in between getting to a lockout, customer lock their keys in the car, and you get there and the window's down. I've had those. Yes, I've had those quite a few times. Honestly, I would say the most intricate would be when a key fob battery dies on a push start vehicle, because customers automatically assume that something's wrong with their car and they have no idea about this battery inside the key fob or how it communicates with the car. So I get there and I get to be the teacher and explain the things that the dealership doesn't say. So I get to nicely say that to the customer. Dealer doesn't say that because they want you to bring a car to service. But you can call me instead.
Yeah. What's been the hardest thing for you in your entrepreneurial journey? What's the hardest thing?
So would you say hardest being on the road dealing with customers or just running the business?
Running the business.
So the hardest is financially. So what's hard for me now today is my business appears to be one way. So financially, it doesn't sound right when you explain it. That's one of the hardest things, that I've had to get through, constantly saying, we're a great business and, our customers love us and all of these things, but we are in a really tight spot financially. Definitely don't want business to fail, but I get a reaction a lot that we don't need assistance opposed to other small businesses. That would be the hardest thing that I've been facing for maybe about the past 6 months. It's like, you guys are fine. You guys are fine. It's like, no, we're not fine. Take it back. So that would be the hardest. The second would be driver rotation. Sometimes I don't see any money uh, sometimes for a month or two straight. That just goes from paying drivers. What'll happen is the turnover rate is so high, because drivers don't understand. A lot of drivers don't understand the concept of the business. So they'll come in expecting to make a ton of money easily. And it's like, no, there is work to do. There is work to be put in. There is a process. Um, so drivers, they'll come in 2 weeks, they'll have a bad 2 days, and then, they want to quit. So we have to find more drivers, because if you're not fulfilling contracts go away. So I'm constantly rotating drivers and drivers. So I want to be able to have enough, business capital to say to my drivers, okay, I do understand that gas does cost, and it is going to take you about a week or two to get in routine. So here's a sign-on bonus that'll keep my drivers around a little bit longer, give them a little bit more cushion so they can get their feet wet and get the ball rolling. So yeah, the biggest challenge is the driver rotation, because they're waiting almost 2 weeks before, they're seeing any real money. And then we have contracts who don't always pay out on time.
So how do you get the word out now? How do you grow the business? Is it social media? Is it 100% through the contract partners? How do you get the word out?
So we have postcards that go out in the mail every 3 months to our Southeast Delco neighbors, and then our Center City. We don't send them all over because we can't afford it, but we do Center City, and then we do Southeast Delco, which is our home area. They get postcards every 3 months to say, hey, we're here. We also take a first responder approach. So the same as we literally go alongside the fire department and the police department, and we market ourselves that way as well, because we do consider ourselves first responders. So we go to like community events, like we have a sneaker drive that's coming up. We do our Roadside Ready program, where we teach roadside assistance to youth for free. We're also going to step into the Women Against Abuse, which is like the female domestic violence program. We'll be stepping into that program this fall to teach roadside assistance to women who are just looking for different avenues of income and things like that. So we try to do community outreach, reach out to our seniors. I drop off business cards and postcards everywhere. Every gas station, there's probably a sticker within like a 20-mile radius of us.
Right. You're working it all the time.
Yep. This is my life, 24/7. Even my kids. So DMX, that's my kids' initial. Not for the rapper. Damier, Morgan, Xavier. Those are my three oldest. So that's what DMX stands for.
So if you had to pick, which one is more important to your success? Ambition or talent?
Ambition. Talent is two ways. Talent can, you're born with it or you learn it. There are people who argue that and say you can't learn talent. It's not true. You can master just about anything these days. Ambition is what's going to get you to learn it. If you don't have the ambition to even step into the room to be willing to learn, then how do you get there?
Yeah. So when you started the company, your goal was, hey, let's have a company that makes enough to be self-sustaining and does a good job and has a good reputation. What are your goals now? I mean, where do you want to see the company go? How big do you want to get? All that.
So there isn't. Where I want to build this to is more community-based roadside assistance. So we want to. I've never seen the 501c3 nonprofit route go alongside roadside assistance. So I do want us to be more community-based, more community-oriented, more so what I say, the people roadside. It doesn't really happen. It doesn't really exist, so to speak. So I want to see us grow to an organization that ties in community outreach, first responders, and roadside assistance as well, all under the female-led, owned, and operated umbrella.
So if you were giving advice to an aspiring entrepreneur right now, and you are, what would your advice be on starting a company?
Find your niche. So how everyone do things, or just because the way someone else has done things has worked for them, I always recommend to find what that successful business does not do. We can have 1,000,001 companies that sell roller skates, but there may be only one that sells roller skates where you never have to replace the wheel. So you kind of find what separates you from other businesses and go with that. Even if it doesn't make any sense, it makes you different. What people love is one, what everybody else can't have. People love, people love that. They want to feel special. They want to feel as if what they are getting from you is for them. That is probably the absolute best advice I would give to someone starting out any business is figure out where you fit.
That is great advice. So, are there any specific challenges that you faced as a minority entrepreneur that a non-minority entrepreneur others would not have faced?
So, aside from the typical, what I get asked the most, are you coming to change my tires? And then I had to say, yes, I am. And then they'll say, like, do you know what you're doing? I get faced with that every day. Even like in the presence and on the phone, customers hear my voice, so they'll see me and they'll say they're not comfortable. So I have to constantly explain and reassure that I'm just as qualified and just as good, if not a little better, not to toot my own horn, the beep beep, to get this thing done. So that is one of the challenges. And then with being in the industry that we're in, it's not just male dominated. They hold this industry. You hear roadside, you hear tire change, you hear tow, you see guys. And it's like, yeah, no, I need a little bit more reassurance that you actually know how to lift this car. And you have to explain to the customer, it's not me that's lifting the car, it's the jack. So, yeah, those are the main challenges is the seriousness that we need as a business behind it. It's automatically taken away because we're female led, because we are a minority, and we don't have many guys. I have a team of 8 girls before you even get to my guys.
Really?
Yeah, it's 8 of us. It's 8 females that's out on the road. And I have guys as well, but realistically we have more guys than girls. Not on purpose. My females are a little bit more patient. So yeah, we deal with that quite a bit. So I have my 3 leading ladies, and then under them there's 4 more. So it's a constant. What are you girls doing? Who sent you? So I have to remind people that I do not work for the insurance company, that we are the direct contract holder, that you are getting the business owner, that nobody's just throwing you a female because there's no one else. You're literally getting the best service. We have to constantly reassure that to customers when the guys don't have to.
Yeah, everybody assumes the guy knows how to change the tire, right?
Yeah, everybody assumes. If I told you how many guys I've trained in the past 5 years, it's like I think we should just be done with that assumption. Let alone how many guys tire changes I change. And I say things to them, they'll see me get there and they'll say, well, I would have changed it myself. I say, well, you don't have the tools I have. I could do it easier, so no worries. And in my head, I'm just like, yeah, you're just saying that because I'm a girl.
So are there any statistics or facts or anything about your company or its growth that you'd like to share with our listeners?
Wow. So overall, this is not with us directly, but for anyone out there who's looking to get into business or roadside, it's a $22 billion industry, and we only fulfill about $2 billion of those every year. So there's more than enough money for you guys to come on board and start your own business with that. On the flip side of things, just with us personally, we are the one and only female-led, owned, and operated roadside assistance business in the tri-state. I want to say a little further than the tri-state, but I don't want to lie to you guys. But Philly, Jersey, Delaware, and the DMV. So we have the tri-state and the DMV as well. So that's 6 states. We're the only female-owned, operated, and led roadside assistance business, period. It's just us.
So if anybody's in the tri-state area and wants to get a hold of you, can you tell them your website, email? How can somebody get a hold of you?
So you guys can, first, for starters, our website, dmxroadside.com. Find us on Instagram at DMXroadside_LLC. And then it's the same for Facebook as well. And then our telephone number, which is 877-ROAD-GRL. So it's 877-ROAD-GRL, which is Road Girl. 877-762-3475. Someone answers that line 24/7. Someone was running our social media 24/7. We take inboxes, phone calls, and if you need service, give us a call. We'll get somebody to you within 90 minutes or less.
Listen, Wydiah, thank you so much for being on the show. I know you've inspired some of our listeners because you've inspired me.
Oh, thank you.
Well, it's a great story, and heck, you're just an inspiration and now you're going to be an inspiration to people all across the country. So thank you for taking a few minutes, and best of luck. And again, thanks so much. We'll talk to you soon.
Yes, I'm all forward. Good talking to you. Bye. Thank you.
Thank you for listening. We hope you were informed and inspired. Now we would like to ask a favor of you. If you could please leave us a review on the podcast platform and follow us, that would be great. And please share us with your network and help support minority business. Thank you.